It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Post University's head women's basketball coach, Coach Courtney Burns. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's basketball?
Sure. Didn't really know right away at a young age, didn't really consider this as a career. I came from a pretty small town and didn't really kind of see that path. I knew I wanted to go to college to play basketball. And I had a great experience at Rhode Island College, played for a fantastic coach. And he was kind of my mentor through my 4 years there. And right after finishing my playing career, I got right into coaching right away. And he's pretty much been my mentor through that whole process. Ended up being an assistant at Johnson and Wales right there, and kind of never looked back from there. And I think it's kind of the second best of being able to play. So when my playing career ended and being able to jump into coaching, kind of the second best thing to being on the court yourself.
What was that experience like going to Rhode Island College and getting to play for them and putting on that uniform for them?
Honestly, I had an amazing experience, and kind of like I said, it's a reason I'm in coaching today. When I was recruited there, Marcus Riley was the coach. He had just taken over the previous year. He'd brought in his first recruiting class, and kind of sold me in the recruiting process on being the next piece of the puzzle of taking the program to places it's never been before. And so he sold me on the vision of building a culture and winning the school's first ever LEC championship and getting to the NCAA tournament. And it was about being a part of something a little bit bigger than yourself. And throughout that 4 years, I had amazing teammates that I still talk to, every day. Still have great relationships with, still have relationships with all my coaches that are there. And honestly, probably one of the best decisions I've ever made. And, very, very thankful for that experience. And, it's been a huge impact in my coaching career today.
How is that experience like as a player playing in the NCAA tournament?
Honestly, the NCAA tournament, there's no feeling like it. When we won the first championship, being able to cut the net down, it still gives you the chills when you talk about it today. But we were actually very fortunate to be able to host the tournament. So we got to play at home, which was huge. So all of our family and friends were there. Got to play on our home court a second time. And honestly, just experience that. I want to give my players today. Not everybody gets that opportunity to go play in the NCAA tournament. Never mind play those games at home. And that's every time, I get into my coaching season and you talk to your players about, trying to win that championship and get to the NCAA tournament, being able to kind of relate myself a little bit, what that experience was like and, being able to kind of still share those memories with my teammates and coaches today. We hope to be able to pass that down to our players for, them to be able to have those opportunities as well.
How is that experience like being a strength and conditioning coach for your alma mater?
It was good. I was fortunate as a freshman that Marcus put me in a leadership position right away. And that started with that strength and conditioning piece. We didn't have a strength coach at the time at Rick. And so I had a lot of background there, coaching mostly youth at the time. But he allowed me to develop a program, allowed me to implement it with the team. And that really kind of started my coaching career there and gave me the ability to, kind of learn how to adjust to different type of athletes and things along those lines. And got me comfortable with talking in front of people, which is something I was comfortable at when I came in as a freshman. So, really kind of just gave me a leadership position as a freshman, which doesn't typically happen, and was able to kind of own that role throughout my 4 years there.
Going to Johns and Wells, what was that experience like being the assistant coach there?
Yeah, so got into coaching right away. So I actually had an extra year of schooling based on my major at Rhode Island College. So I finished up my playing career and ended up picking up a minor in coaching. And Corey Bollard had taken over at Johnson and Wales that season. And he was trying to do the same thing at Johnson and Wales that we had done at Rick. So he was taking over a program that, wasn't very successful. He wanted to bring them to a GNAC championship, wanted to get them into the NCAA tournament. So I got to be a part of kind of building and developing that culture from an assistant coach standpoint right away. Got to learn a ton from him. He did a tremendous job with that program. I was there for 1 year and was fortunate to get a full-time job in coaching after I graduated. But he really kind of just set the path and set a tone for me early and kind of got my hands wet in every aspect of coaching. So I was pretty fortunate to find a great mentor in that first season of me kind of getting my feet wet in the coaching field.
Going to Southern Connecticut, what was that experience like being the assistant coach there?
That was honestly for me, I think a huge impact in my coaching career. I was a full-time assistant. I was the only assistant on staff. We were only there for 1 year. It was a unique situation where the coach only had a 1 year contract. He had taken over mid-season for the coach before. So, not a lot of people applied for the assistant job. So, being young, I was able to kind of get my feet wet, but I got to help out in every aspect of the program. I was in charge of scouting. I learned a lot on recruiting. We were always on the road, recruiting players, trying to find and build our roster for the following season. So, at a young age, really kind of developed every aspect of coaching, being the only assistant. And I think recruiting, like I said, was probably the biggest piece for me. Being at the Division II level, you really got to see, what separated a D3 athlete from a D2 athlete and a Division I athlete from a Division II athlete. And, in the Northeast 10, you get a lot of players that had the ability to play at the Division I level, but, maybe wanted to compete for something a little bit more, maybe go for a national championship at the Division II level. So, we had a lot of those kind of tweener players that had Division I offers that wanted to come down and be more impactful at the Division II level. So for me in recruiting in my first full-time job, I got to find, that niche of, what those athletes look like at each level to kind of give me a broad view for, my coaching career when I became a head coach.
Of course, what was that feeling like when you did become a head coach for the first time going to Michael's College?
So yeah, at Mitchell, you definitely, you think you're gonna go kind of one direction and you have this, plan and you're gonna go up here and, you pretty much bob and weave pretty much everywhere. But it gave me the ability at, again, a really young age, to kind of own my program. I had great support from the administration there, and taking over a program that had done fairly well in the conference, but had never won a conference championship, had never been to the NCAA tournament. That's really what administration had their sights set on. And so we came in day one as a staff and built a culture together, really hit the road on recruiting. And honestly, like I learned so much from being there. And, again, no full-time assistants for me. So everybody was part-time, but I was very fortunate to have a lot of assistants that were really supportive of me, supportive of the program, that really backed us. So, we got a lot out of our assistants as well, but really kind of owned every aspect of the program with recruiting, fundraising, player development, implementing my offense, implementing my defense, but be able to make my mistakes along the way, and have support from administration, to kind of figure it out and what that looked like and, develop my philosophy along the way. And, we had a lot of success there. Got fortunate to coach a lot of really good players, put the program in a really great position when we left. But honestly, like that position for me has been very beneficial in my next position here at Post.
During that time, what was that experience like going to the NCAA tournament as a head coach?
It was great. It was kind of like I said earlier, a little bit of a reminder of what it was like going there as a player and, as a coach, a little different in a sense of, you're trying to sell these players on, something they can't really see, something that's never been done there before. And, they're kind of putting their trust in you of like, I'm going to put all this work in. Can we do it? Can we get there? And so you get bought into something that, you can't see and that you're working really hard for. And in years prior, we had, failed or come up a little bit short in reaching that goal. So, for that group, that was my first recruiting class. They were juniors at the time. And really, to see all their hard work come to fruition and to go in and compete. We ended up playing the number one team in the country, and it was a two-possession game at the half. So it was, really, really special for that group, and to have a majority of that group return the following year, put us in a really good place as well to repeat. But, I still talk to those players. I'm very fortunate all of them have come to a post game, and supported me there, which has been great. A few of them that graduated ended up actually coming to play with me, at post as well. But, I think they've been able to use those lessons that they learned from a basketball standpoint, in their careers and, see them as leaders in the workforce and, in life now is, kind of get you to see the bigger picture as well. And, I think it was a credit to, the journey that they had, at their time at Mitchell.
Coming to Post, what was that experience like becoming a head coach?
I was really excited for the opportunity, at Post. And, I played Division III, obviously coached Division III for 6 years. One of the big things I always disliked was our inability to work with our players in the off season. As a player, I always wanted to work with my coaches. And, as a coach, you had players coming to your office, can we get in the gym in the off season? And, to NCAA rules, you're not allowed to. So that Division II level has a great balance, in my opinion, of, us still be able to work with them in the off season from a skill development standpoint. So when I got the opportunity at Post, it kept me here in Connecticut with all of my family and friends, got me to be able to compete at, a little bit of a higher level, ability to be able to offer student athlete scholarships. So it was really exciting for me. I felt like it was the right fit overall. It's a very similar school to Mitchell in terms of kind of that small school feel, where athletics is a big part of your campus. And our administration here at Post is fantastic. They've been super supportive of me since we started. And it's just, they're really giving us the resources, and they want us to get that first CAC championship. They want us to get the NCAA tournament. So that's where our sights have been set on. And these last couple of years, we've really been building the culture and putting our players in a position to be able to create that opportunity.
For you as a head coach, what was that feeling like stepping onto that court for the first time at Post, and what was that feeling like getting your first win as a head coach?
It was good. And honestly, like I said, I was fortunate. I still had some of my Mitchell players with me. They came along and got their grad degree, being able to use that COVID year. So for me, it was kind of two different experiences, one to be able to take that next step and, have a school that supports you and, has faith in you to be able to take their program to the next level. And especially with all the success Post had had previously. And then to be able to share it again with some of my players from the Division III level that were able to kind of make that jump and come in and impact at the D2 level. That was special as well. But, honestly, I'm just truly grateful for the opportunity that Post has given me here, and, the faith they have in us as a coaching staff to be able to take the program to the next step. And, I just feel pretty fortunate, for all their support.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a coach?
Sure. So, in my opinion, we have probably one of the best practice schedules in the country. So, we practice at 10 a.m. Every day, which is really nice. So, our players get to schedule their classes around that 10 a.m. time slot. So, on game day, it allows us to really keep our routine pretty similar. So, we'll do a shoot around in the morning. It's typically an hour. We'll get a lot of shots up within our offense. We'll go over the opposing team's baseline and sideline out of bounds plays, make sure they know those, how we're going to be defending them, where each player is playing within each position. Then we'll do some sort of team lunch. We mix it up. We keep it fairly light. And our players, whether we're on the road, we'll judge what time the bus leaves, or if it's a home game, what time our players need to be at the facility. But we're on the court an hour and 5 minutes early. And then at the hour mark, our players start their dynamic stretch. My assistant coaches are down there with them. They start the first half of our team warm-ups, typically going through a lot of shots that we take within our offensive system. Very high energy. I like things to look clean cut. So, everything's in unison. We're all communicating together. We'll come up for our pregame talk, go over the matchups, go over personnel again, make sure everybody's on the same page, make sure we all understand, the offensive and defensive goals. And then we're back down to start the warm-ups and finish the warm-ups until we get up onto tip.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you started to build for Post universities?
Sure. So we're, you'll see if you follow us on social media, there's a couple things that we have within our program that are really important to us. The first one is attitude. That's something I actually stole from Jay Wright. He's one of my favorites in the coaching profession. And, I think over COVID, I had a chance to listen to one of his books, and, he talked about the culture of his attitude. And basically it encompasses, we all have the ability to choose how we respond to a situation, but you don't always get to choose the situation that you're in. So that's something that's really big for our players that we talk about all the time. And it leads outside of the basketball court. So, we're not going to be able to control the refs. We're not going to be able to maybe control what the other team does. We control how we respond to that. Same thing in life. Again, you can't always control what happens. You can control your response. So that's a really big piece. So when our players are, maybe make a mistake or they're coached up, attitude is something that our players respond with. And then, we found that, our players, and most players tend, sometimes you just focus on the negatives of things. So you're there and, all of a sudden you don't hear the bad and you don't hear the good things that are being said. So, when a teammate or a coach or somebody gives you a compliment, we communicate 2 points. So just saying that's a good thing, like basically like scoring a basket. And the last piece of our culture that's been big for us, actually more so this year, we have a really young group, and they were taking mistakes too hard, where it was compounding in 2, 3, 4, 5 mistakes. And a friend of mine, the first year we won the championship at Mitchell, it was a little bit of a rough road on the way there, and had a lot of talent, had all the pieces, had been together, knew the system, knew the style. And, we couldn't get over the hump. And, I thought we were in a difficult position come playoff time if we were going to kind of make that run that we had always talked about. And one of my colleagues, when I went into the office, said, Court, you got to be a duck. And I said, well, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know what that means. And I was like aggravated. I remember being in there. And he's like, well, if you watch a duck swim in the water, the water just rolls off its back. Like, you got to let that one roll off your back. And I gave that speech to our Mitchell team right as we were going into the playoffs, and just the chaos of conference play. New England College was a big rival of ours, and games always got pretty heated. So we talked about staying composed and kind of letting things roll off your back. And they really kind of bought into that. And it was something that was big for the program. And so we tried to use that this year as well. So we were kind of what we call is getting in the blender where things start to kind of get chaotic and they continue to spiral and you have no control and it ended up costing us some games this year. And so my whole staff that was with me at Mitchell is now here with me at Post, so I'm pretty fortunate with that piece. And we talked as a staff and I said, do we think the Duck story can work again? And so they're like, well, let's give it a try. And so I told them the story that I just told you, and we talked about it. And so when we started kind of getting in the blender, you'll hear our team, we called duck, duck, and then we clap 2 times. And they bought into it like crazy. So, I think it's always about finding what your team can buy into. So I think every other team probably in the country thinks we're crazier. It has no idea what we're talking about half the time. But we've seen a huge switch over the last like six weeks for our team of, when we are making those mistakes, getting that mentality, duck, duck, let it roll off our back and we're on to the next one. And so this group has come a really long way from a point of potentially not making the playoff 6 weeks to potentially being able to take the 2 seed over these next couple weeks. And, that's been a big part of our culture. If you hear our players talking some interviews after games, letting things kind of roll off your shoulders. And, I think that's said for life too, right? Same thing we could talk about with attitude. You got to kind of let things kind of roll off your shoulders sometimes. And so, I think having some players from Mitchell kind of talk about it when they're in their job and listening and, frustrations they have and just saying they can relate to some of those stories that we had. I think ultimately as a staff, we're doing a pretty good job of trying to teach them lessons outside of the game too.
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you compete against?
Sure. So our conference is split up into 2 divisions. So we have the North Division, we have the South Division, and the CAC. So within our division, we have Dominican, Caldwell, Bloomfield, Felician. On the other side, you have Holy Family, you have Jefferson, you have Georgian Court, Goldie Beacom. So a lot of schools in kind of the New York, New Jersey, Philly area is typically where our conference is. And then Bridgeport is also in our conference as well, which makes for a nice close game for us right around the corner.
What is that home game atmosphere like when teams like Holy Family comes to home versus going to Bridgeport?
Yeah, so I mean, we got great support. I mean, even on the road, like all of our parents and families and friends tend to travel. So we get good support all around. But Drubner is definitely a tight gym. And so when you get a packed crowd in there, it's definitely a home court advantage for sure. We have some of our practice players on campus, like they bring in a big crowd for us as well. So home games can get pretty intense. I remember last year we play the South side basically for us. We alternate. So the one year we go to them, and then the next year they come to us. So we only play the South Side once. And we upset Holy Family last season at home, and the crowd was pretty special. And so when your players know that the student body, faculty, staff, they all have your back, that they're supporting your games, it makes for a pretty amazing environment. I know we've had recruits come up and say, we've never seen so many fans at a women's game, and it's not just family and friends, but it's them plus student body. And I just think it goes to show the support athletics has at Post in general. And then for them to support our team that way, I think is a huge advantage for us when opposing teams come into the gym.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as head coach, what do you look at in them?
Sure. So for freshmen, the process is definitely a little bit longer for us. So we'll start on the road in the spring, looking for the next class. So we're finishing up class of 2025 right now. And then this spring and summer, we'll start building our list for class of 2026. Last year was a little bit unique for us. We graduated pretty much our whole roster. So we had to bring in 13 last year. So that was a pretty big class. And we've been able to, between transfers and freshmen, last recruiting class, we've been able to balance things out a little bit. But basically, we'll start with looking like me and my staff will go out. We know what positions we need, and we recruit based on kind of our style of play and our system. So we run what's called the read and react offense. So it's a motion style offense. It can be 5 out, it can be 4 out, 1 in, it can be 3 out, 2 in, but it's predicated on pass, cut, and attack. And so we're constantly moving, reversing the basketball to create the best shot opportunity. So we like players that have the ability to play inside, outside. So you see some of our guards will stop in and even post up. Our post players have the ability to step out and shoot from the perimeter. So really looking at players that can score on multiple levels and have the ability to play at a really up-tempo pace. And then our biggest conversation in the recruiting process is, we need players that are bought in on the defensive end of the floor. That was a huge focus for us in this past recruiting class. Not necessarily mechanics. We feel like most players we have to teach our mechanics to, but players are going to kind of have that dog mentality on the defensive end of the floor. Players are going to be bought in that are going to dive on the floor. They're going to be able to take charges. We average like 3 to 4 charges a game. Based on our defense. So that's a huge focus for us. Players that are lazy on that side of the floor, Again, we'll fix the mechanics, but if you don't have kind of that heart and hustle, it's not going to be a good fit for us. And so that was a huge focus for us throughout the recruiting process. And basically, what it'll look like for us, like after we go to those tournaments, if we feel like you fit from a skill set standpoint, we'll start that recruiting process, which is usually a conversation with me or one of my assistant coaches on the phone, which will then lead to an unofficial visit where we'll have you come to campus, see the campus, meet the team, see if you feel like it could be a good fit for you. Do we have the right major? Do you like our school? I like to have them sit in and come and watch a practice. I know a lot of people say come in and watch a game, but I say you're going to be with me probably 75% more of the time in practice. So, kind of see how we operate on a daily basis. So we're very transparent in the recruiting process. That's just kind of my style and how I like to go. And then after that, like we don't throw out offers pretty quickly. Like we're not really going to throw out an offer the first time on the phone. When we do put an offer out, we put it out to one player in that position, which I know everyone kind of has their own recruiting style and philosophy on the offer piece. But if we offer you, we know you're the number one position in your class in that spot. And then we try to give you as much time as possible to make the decision. And obviously, it gets to a point where if we have to put that offer out to somebody else, we're pretty transparent with that process as well. But it seemed to work well for us over the last couple of years. We landed five of our top recruits in the freshman class last season. Two of them are starters for us right now. And then we have two freshmen that are committed coming in. And like I said earlier, we've had to balance out the class just based on how many we had graduate. So the portal was really big for us. And we'll continue to try to find a balance between bringing in true freshmen and players from the portal as well. We signed 7 Division I transfers this year in all different positions. And again, we're able to kind of find those players that fit our style and fit our system. So, this year has been putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. But, now this recruiting class coming up, we won't have to bring in as much. And we'll look at bringing in kind of 3 to 4. But like I said, right now we have 2 committed for the class of 2025. We'll look at bringing in 2 to 3 transfers to continue to balance out the class.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that uniform for the first time representing posts?
It's exciting. We do the media day, like most of the Division Ones do when they come in. But when they take it for the first game, and honestly, like the uniform now is kind of more impactful than when you first see them put it on for their first game. It's for me, like to see how far our freshmen this year have come between Cameron Porter, Jackie Russell, Jasmine Day Cox, Mackenzie Ford, Jayla Cologne. Like they put it on, and you have this vision for them and what it looks like, and you see them for the first time. But then now 4 or 5 months later, where are they at and what does that look like? And to see their development, honestly, is one of the most rewarding experiences I think to our staff. And it's great to see just how far they can come in such a short period of time. And that's going to be the future of our program. So it's exciting to see.
How is it like getting to see them putting it on for the last time as head coach?
Ooh, that's the worst one because you never know when it's coming, right? You think, or at least you hope you're in the playoffs, right? You don't know when it's coming, but it's probably bittersweet. I mean, you're setting them off. They're going to graduate. They're going to cross the stage, which is the ultimate goal. And they're going to go in, and again, you get to see them after their 4-year career and how their life goes and the impact they've had. And like I said, we've had a lot of players come back this past season just to watch the team play and be able to see how well they do there. But it's always tough. I have a lot of tears in the locker room usually. You never want to see a career come to an end, so it's usually a pretty emotional experience. But a moment for us to be thankful as well to everything they've given to the program over the course of their career.
What is that like getting to see them going on and playing professional basketball, whether it's the WNBA or getting into coaching?
Yeah, we've had a few different avenues. I've had 3 players, or 4 players, I'm sorry, from my time at Mitchell get into coaching. And so for them to kind of come back and watch our practices, get a chance to kind of implement maybe some of the stuff they learned as players to their players, see kind of what their philosophies are and what that looks like, see how they can impact the next generation. And I think their experience, allows them to do so. And we had 2 players last season go overseas, Trinity Bravo and Maya Klein, who graduated from Post last year. They both actually went over and played together. So, there's a lot of definitely opportunity. We have a player this year who has a tryout coming up once, the season's over. So anytime I think a player can travel overseas, continue their career, I think it's a great opportunity. I always say there's only so many years that you can keep playing, so take advantage of it while you can before the real world hits. But I think we've had players, had those opportunities, which is fantastic, which I think, opens up the doors for connections for, players down the line to be able to kind of reach out and get opportunities as well. And then, I always feel like for women to be in coaching and, kind of impact the next generation is a huge benefit, to our youth now today. So I love it. We have players now in the college level, high school level. I have some girls coaching boys now. So, they're all kind of spread out, and it's kind of nice to see, them be able to kind of, like I said, impact that next generation.
What have been some of the things you've been able to accomplish so far at Post, and what are some of your future plans for Post?
Sure. So last year, we ended up winning the North Division. Like I said previously, Post had a lot of success in conference prior to my arrival here. The previous coach did a great job. So it was the fourth year in a row that we had won the CAC North Division title, and we ended up coming up a little short in the playoffs. Ended up, falling short in the quarterfinals at home. And so, when we recruited this class, we were able to kind of bring in players that we felt fit our style, fit our system, and really kind of take us to the next step and, compete for that first ever CACC championship, earn ourselves a bid to the NCAA tournament. And so that's where we really have our eyes set as of now. It's been kind of an up and down year for us, a rebuilding year, I think, as most people would kind of say based on their opinions. But ultimately, like we feel like we have all the pieces that we need. Our group has really started to click. It was just a matter of time. And, we said as a staff, we had to implement our offense, we had to implement our defense, we had to implement team culture, we had to implement a chemistry with this group. And, I give kudos to them because we could have lost the locker room a long time ago. We made our schedule as tough as possible. Every one of these players in the recruiting process said they want to win the East region. They want to get to, the Elite Eight. And so we played the best of the best in our region. Everybody that was in the regional rankings last year, we played. So we played a very difficult non-conference schedule. And, we kind of said, this is what it looks like. So this is what we need to get to. And, we have a lot of work to get there. And, this group has just kind of stuck to the path. They've continued to work. They continue to grind. I don't think our record speaks to the talent level that we have here in this group. And, the fortunate part for us is, we're peaking at the right time. Again, like I said earlier, in a position to potentially steal the 2 seed within our conference going into the playoffs, get a home game. And then, this group's going to be together for quite a while. A lot of our players are freshmen and sophomores. We only start one senior. So, we have a lot to build with over the next few years.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's basketball?
That's a great question. So I think, it's tough for freshmen. Every freshman, right, is probably the best on their high school team, one of the best on their area U team. Now you're coming into a program where everybody was the best. And so, I think the possibility of not playing is tough for a lot of freshmen. Learning, our season is probably 3 or 4 times as long as your high school season. The grind of it, daily. Like once practice starts, I always say your body's never going to feel great again until, the season's over. And I think it's a huge adjustment for freshmen. And there is what I kind of call that freshman learning curve. And some are shorter than others, some are longer than others. For us, like we have freshmen that have to come in and play right away. And that's not always the case in other programs that, maybe have upperclassmen that have been a part of the program for a little while. And so, that can be tough as well. And, we talk to our freshmen all the time that you can't compare the people to your right and left. Like you got to compare to, your own journey and what that looks like and, make the best experience possible and learn and grow as much as you can. And then, I always feel like that freshman to sophomore year summer is one of the biggest summers in a player's career of you being able to kind of develop and, what your career going to kind of look like going forward. So, I do think that it's tough, but I would suggest like freshmen, don't compare yourself to anybody else. Soak out as much information as you can. If you can get in the gym with the coaches, get extra work in, be able to watch film, communicate with the upperclassmen, talk about their experience. I think that can kind of help you along the way. But I think sometimes, everybody wants that success right now. I want to get on the floor now. I want to play now. I want to be successful now. And, sometimes you get them in their little rut where they're frustrated because they're not where they thought they were going to be. But, we just tell our kids like every journey is a little bit different. Enjoy the process, enjoy the grind, find ways to separate yourself and, grow throughout that time. And if freshman year isn't it for you, just trust that process that, you keep working at it. Like you're going to find your role over the course of your career.
What advice would you give those players that have aspirations of playing in the WNBA or overseas?
Yeah, so I think, sometimes like we'll get players that, Oh, well, I work really hard. Well, that's like kind of the bare minimum. Everybody works hard, right? That you got to work hard to be on a college basketball team. But, I think when you start looking at the pros, like the things that separates them are, those extra little things they're doing. How much extra film are you watching? Are you getting up extra shots outside of coaches' workouts, outside of practice? What are those little things that you're doing to develop your game? Like over the summer, are you only working on your strengths or, you're working to build on those weaknesses? And I think, those pros are gym rats. They're basketball junkies, I would kind of call them, where again, they're really dedicated to the game and their craft. And that's what's really going to be able to separate you. Like I said earlier, like we'll have the connections to be able to put you in front of the right people. Have you done the work to, showcase yourself? How are you going to stand out with, all the other players in the country? It's a very small percentage that go on to play from high school basketball to play college basketball, and even smaller percentage of those that go play from college to the pros. So, what are you going to do to separate yourself? How are you going to create yourself as, that holistic player? And so, we have players that come in that can talk to our players, that we connect them with kind of what their journey was like, what separated them in that process of being able to go play overseas. So I think those things are important. And if you can showcase yourself within our style, within our system, I think it bodes well and translate to most other systems at the next level. So, they have great opportunity here to be able to do that. But, what time are you going to be putting in? And I think the last one is taking care of your body. I think that one sometimes get overlooked. Are you in the weight room? Are you seeing the athletic training staff? Are you taking care of your injuries? Are you, taking care of your recovery? Are you eating the right foods? I think all those things are super important, throughout your journey.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Yeah. I always wish again, like I said earlier, coming from a small town, you never really knew that college coaching was like a profession that you could go into. So I'd planned on being a teacher, and then getting into like high school coaching, until I had my experience at Rhode Island College. But one of the things I always said I wished is I did a little bit more camps. There's so many different camps that you can coach at the college level throughout the summer. Almost every one of them does like youth camps. And so being able to kind of build your network while you're playing, learn how to kind of coach the youth. You really got to break things down at that level. So I feel like it gives you some coaching experience prior to, graduating and finishing your playing career. And then, I'm a big believer. We sent a couple players into the So You Want to Be a Coach program with the WBCA. So sending them over to convention, being with other, student athletes that are in a similar position to them, where they just graduated and trying to get into coaching, but then put you in an area you get to network with coaches from all across the country at all different levels, from the Division I level, to the D2, D3, JUCO, NAI level. So you get a lot of experiences here to be able to network. And, I think the people in our profession are great. I've created some great relationships and friends, with people along my career. I just wish I was able to start it, maybe a little bit sooner, there. So, I think the more connections you can create, I think it's all about kind of who you know. So if you're a hard worker and you've created those connections, I think opportunities can open up for you. So, building your network and, talking through different things with coaches in terms of, X's and O's, our culture, and kind of sharing our philosophies and thoughts together. I think at a younger age, if I could have started doing that a little bit more, it definitely could have been helpful throughout my career.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with your team?
Sure. My Instagram and Twitter are Coach C Burns, and then our post account is post_WBB.
Thank you again, Courtney Burns, for your interview and best luck in your future at Post University as the head women's basketball coach.
Thank you.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Courtney Burns, for your interview and best luck in your future.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.